Vice President Robredo, we in the Brahma Kumaris admire and respect you, and we support your integrity and honesty in public office and in your private life. With Sister Genti, we are confident that both of you can contribute much to this public program the Brahma Kumaris have organized for our friends entitled Inner Strength in Times of Conflict and Disaster. It is an honor, Vice President Robredo, that you speak before this group of the Friends of the Brahma Kumaris this afternoon. You now have the floor, ma'am. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was a little late coming over. I was telling Senator Shahani that I was in the middle of a meeting with the Office of the Cabinet Secretary. Leticia Ramos Shahani, who we really admire both as a public servant and as a woman advocate of many really relevant causes in the country. I was telling her earlier that at her age, she's still very active, still into so many advocacies. She was telling me about her being a farmer now and about her maintaining a Carabao farm. Talagang Mr. Gonzalo Serrano Jr., the president of Brahma Kumaris Philippine Spiritual Foundation Incorporated. Of course, my good friend, Sister Shanti Vinluan, Mr. Walid Wafik, General Manager, Ms. Judy Rogers, Founding President of Images and Voices of Hope, Sister Genti, Kirpalani, Director for Europe and the Middle East, Sister Rajni, Director for Philippines and Japan. To every one of you, magandang hapon pong muli. The city where I lived almost my entire life gets the lion's share of storms in the country every year. So when my husband Jesse was mayor for 6 terms, almost 19 years, we would get so used to him being the first man out when there's a storm coming, and the last man in once the storm's fury was over. After resting, he'd also be the first man on the street cleaning up. So dealing with disasters was a major part of taking care of our city. And to emulate Jesse, when he was no longer here and while I was already working in Congress, I would drop everything in Manila. When I knew that storms were going to hit my district, I would go to the poorest communities, especially disaster-prone areas. Once, I saw so many live snakes, also taking shelter in one of the public local schools I was visiting. I also remember a lady, 86 years old, who was taking care of a 32-year-old grandson who was bedridden due to cerebral palsy. I couldn't quite understand why a really old woman who needed to be taken care of herself was looking over the needs of her grandson all by herself. I went inside her house and saw that it was no more than 10 square meter space that hardly protected them from the elements. They were living in the dark. There was no water, there was no electricity. It was no way to live for people in the pink of health. What more for 2 people who already needed extra attention and care? Since then, I've posted about her predicament on social media. And so many kind hearts have donated materials for her house, pillows, beddings, a bag of groceries every month, and money, so that the grandmother wouldn't have to wash clothes by the river all by herself. The poor, the old, the young, and those who have special needs are most vulnerable to natural disasters. This is not to belittle the fact that disasters and conflict can affect everyone, but it is harder for those who are vulnerable to recover and rebuild after typhoons, earthquakes, and other calamities. For those of us who are committed to improving the lives of our people, it is very important that those who have been left behind by progress will be protected from calamities as well. While getting to know the farthest reaches of my district, I was appalled to realize that our barangays didn't even have disaster plans. There was no clear information on which areas within their jurisdiction were vulnerable to what kind of disaster. There were no evacuation plans. Infrastructure to protect small communities from the sea and from storm surges were not prioritized. People rebuilt their houses where dangers still existed. And instead of coming up with a long-term plan, some local leaders were content with distribution of relief goods, like canned goods and rice. You can imagine how this went on for years. Our people lived in constant fear and trauma, and things are bound to get worse. There has been a 0.65 degrees Celsius increase in the average global temperature from 1951 to 2010. And this is expected to increase more by 0.9 to 1.1 degrees Celsius in the 2020s, and by 1.8 to 2.2 degrees Celsius in the 2050s. Hotter temperatures are associated with the rise of sea levels, threatening coastal areas, heavier rainfalls, and general change in precipitation patterns. Extreme storm surges and hurricanes happen more frequently now, as we know, and in fact, we are starting to experience them already. The financial toll of disasters on homes, buildings, properties is already heavy. How can we even begin to measure the effects of natural disasters on people's sanity and emotional well-being? Addressing climate change is a shared responsibility of the community of nations. Both developed and developing countries should contribute to this end. We recognize, however, that not all developing nations have the capacity to mitigate climate change on their own. This is where our mutual obligations come in. Developed countries must help smaller developing countries in their efforts in climate change mitigation and adoption. According to the World Risk Index 2015, the Philippines is the third among 171 countries most vulnerable to disaster risks and natural hazards. We experience an average of 20 tropical cyclones every year and other climatic and extreme weather aberrations, such as the El Niño phenomenon. These disasters strain government funds with an average of 15 billion pesos in annual direct damages. Both on a national level and a personal level, disasters wipe out resources and trap poor people in the pit of poverty. With the rising costs of climate change, both financially and emotionally, we can no longer depend on the traditional ways of addressing them. Nor can we continue the negative effects of patronage and the politics behind aid. Both the national and local levels need to work together to find solutions that best mitigate the consequences of climate change. For instance, we need adaptation strategies that are easy for our communities to understand, easy to learn, and easy to adopt. We need to beat the drums to create awareness at the household level. But most of all, we need to include the communities themselves in creating these plans. This is where empowerment and participation is most crucial, because leaving a home and farm that has fed your family for years is a highly emotional event that most Filipinos do not want to do until it's too late. Without their buy-in and ownership, disaster plans won't work. Republic Act 10174 established the People's Survival Fund, or the PSF. This is a special fund in the National Treasury for the financing of adoption programs and projects based on the National Strategic Framework. The amount earmarked for this fund is initially 1 billion pesos, but this may be augmented via donations, endowments, and contributions. The fund may be used in adaptation activities in the areas of water resources management, land management, agriculture and fisheries, health, infrastructure development, natural ecosystems, including mountainous and coastal ecosystems. The fund also covers improving and monitoring of diseases triggered by climate change, forecasting and early warning systems, supports institutional development, especially for local governments, can serve as guarantee for risks faced by farmers, agricultural workers, and other stakeholders. The PSF is a major step in the right direction, but our communities need to be trained on how to write proposals so that they can access this fund. Then we have House Bill 4216 from the 16th Congress, a bill we filed asking government and even the private sector to take into account environmental impacts when they buy supplies, materials, and infrastructure projects. We will also make sure that the houses and communities we will build as part of our mandate as Housing Secretary will be climate change resilient, sustainable in terms of its use of energy, fuel, light, and water. They will be spaces where people can feel safe, children can run and play, and be at peace with themselves and the world. That is because in all of these, the key component to success is creating a culture of resilience, where inner strength and flexibility are stronger than despair and desperation. Concrete buildings can be rebuilt. Houses can be constructed again. Funding can be obtained. But when a person is paralyzed by loss and completely devastated, the journey back will not be easy. I have personally seen this in the course of my years as a community worker. And I am grateful that institutions like Brahma Kumaris and individuals like Sister Genti and most of you in the association focus on the wounds that matter most. So may we all, this is a room full of people, and we hope that after this forum, we will be able to emulate your kindness, your resiliency, and your dedication to this work. Thank you very much for having me this afternoon. It is indeed a great honor. Maraming salamat po. Magandang hapon pong muli sa inyong lahat.